So now we've got our bird caped out. I took a big trash bag and put a slit in it just to kind of keep all the borax in. Foam core to pin it down when we get it placed where we want. Borax to help tan it out. This box will get me 2 full birds and probably 2 tail mounts, so not too bad. So we're gonna start off. I took an old spoon and I kind of bent it a little bit to help dig in my box here. And I start out, I'm gonna load up the head cavity by the beak there and kind of pack that full. And I'm gonna do each wing. Then I'm gonna do each leg. I can find where the hole went. You want to make sure you get everywhere there's fat or meat covered real well. And don't worry about getting it on the feathers, it's real easy to come off later. And you, like I said, really want to make sure you get it around this tail where you got some meat and stuff left. And then I kind of open her up and get everything else covered. Okay, then I figure out where it needs to go on my board to get it pinned. And I kind of wad it up and scoot it off to the side. And then I get my borax and I put me a pile down here. I'll just dump some out. Clumps I just take and break up. And I kind of spread that out about where my bird's going to be at. That way anything I might miss still gets covered. Then I'm going to take my bird and kind of roll him over onto that spot there. And make sure I got plenty under where that tail goes. And pull that down. And this bird's got a broken wing. We're going to kind of fix that as we go. We're going to start here. I've got some straight pins and some T-pins. The T-pins are probably easier, but they're easier to find later when you're going to pull them out. And we're just going to put our pin in and kind of hold him where we want him to go. And this takes a little while, but you want to make sure you get everything laid down nice where you want it, because this is your shot to do it. Once he's dry, he's not moving. Helps if I'd have 1 pin instead of 2. And you want to make sure you get the feathers laid down how you want them, because once the skin dries, they don't move. So that one there, if it's rotated like that, it'll stay that way. And then I just kind of come through and I pull a wing out. it to go. And I'll angle another one in the opposite direction and kind of straddle the bone there so that way it stays put. Bone, cartilage, whatever it's called on through the feathers. The spine of the feather, I guess. You don't have to do all of them, just enough to get it to stay where you want it to stay. If you want to stop the video while I get it pinned, then we can start back up after I get it pinned. Otherwise it's just going to be long and boring. Kind of fan that out. We want these to lay down, so we're going to put a pin in here. And I'd suggest a T-pin so you can find it later. Well, easier to find later. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Kind of fan him out. And this one we got to make sure we kind of piece back together since it's got a broken wing. And then we're going to hide it with the plumage feathers here. And this side might not be as fanned as the other side. And this is just foam core board that I'm pinning it down to. It's about $2 for this sheet at Hobby Lobby. At least the last time I bought it. Which may or may not have been recent. And again, we're kind of pinning this around, making sure all the feathers are laying how we would like them to lay. Because once they dry, that's the way they are. I can show you an example of that when we get finished pinning this bird. We're putting extra pins on this side because, like I said, broken wing. Okay, so when we come down to the feet down here, I like to face them how they're, and face them out, because that's the way it would be if he was flying away from you. And I'll take him and spread them out and pin them where I want them to stay. Do the other foot, and I'm leaving them kind of spaced out a little further than you would think they would hang because we want to be able to fan the tail feathers out. The good news is if we don't have enough room after we pin them, we can always unpin them and repin them. feathers. And again, make sure they're all nice and pretty when they're laying, because that's the way they're going to be. And the glory of doing this yourself is you can fan it out as much as you want or as little as you want. And I kind of start not quite middle, but a little bit offset. And then I'll pin about every other feather. And again, I'm putting them in angled to kind of hold them in place. And see, we kind of run out of room there, but I think that's enough fan on the tail feather. But maybe we should pull that out a little bit more. So we can move him a little bit. Like I said, good thing is we can still unpin it and move it. Okay, and now we want to make sure we got all our feathers kind of where we want them. I'm going to pull those pins out and then put these feathers over top of those. The reason why I'm pulling those pins out is because I don't want to lose them when we come back to pull it out later. Because sometimes the pins are kind of hard to find. That way we can get some of those colors there showing. And that looks a little bit nicer. And again, we want to kind of make sure everything's where we want it to be. And smooth everything down. So that looks pretty good. So like I was saying, here's a piece I've already kind of done. And if you don't get the feathers quite turned around, they stay that way and you can't get them to move back. So this is a finished piece, just a little section I did to kind of play. You can see there's a little bit of fat still on there that's dried out. The skin's all dried out. It's pretty rigid, doesn't move a whole lot. Now once we get everything pinned the way we want it pinned, then we're going to sprinkle borax over the top just to kind of give it an extra assurance of drying out. I make sure I go real heavy on, again, the spots that, you know, have a lot of meat chunks left on them. The tail, the legs, the wings, and pretty much anywhere that the skin's on the bird. It's not necessary to go all the way out to the tail, to the wing tips. And you're thinking, wow, this is going to make a really big mess and that's going to be really hard to get off. show you a trick for that too. Okay, so then we cover with borax like so. And I've got it in this plastic bag just to kind of keep the mess in. And I just kind of wrap it over like that. And then I go stick it in a cool, dry spot. My cool, dry spot is in the basement on top of the deep freeze that's for my dog training. So I don't get into it a whole lot right now since it's still bird season. We do a lot of wild hunting, wild bird hunting. So we don't really have to get into our frozen game for training. Pick up pins. So on our pieces that we had, if they get covered in borax, you just kind of shake it off the excess. And then I take just a little paintbrush and go in the direction of the feathers. You can brush it off, shake it, brush it. You can do both sides to get all the loose little pieces off. And just go the direction of the feathers and you'll get all that borax off. And it'll give you all your pretty colors.
Typically, how long does it take for it to dry out before you want to pull it off the board?
I usually just kind of put it and forget about it for 2-3 weeks, and then, like I said, pull it and shake it off and good to go. After you get it pulled and it's like this, then you can mount it to wood or barn wood or anything to hang on the wall. Hot glue, some pins, whatever you get to stick in.